Tycoon discovers his struggling ex-wife now lives luxuriously with twins after abandonment to the world. Daniel Kong was the embodiment of perfection. Tall, composed, impeccably dressed, with eyes that didn't blink even when markets collapsed. At 32, he had already built a business empire that stretched across continents. His name echoed through glass towers and boardrooms, and his face graced finance magazines alongside words like visionary, genius, invincible. But behind closed doors, behind the heavy glass walls of his penthouse office overlooking the Seoul skyline, he was ice. Daniel didn't believe in emotions. He saw them as weaknesses, luxuries for those who could afford to be distracted. Love, to him, was nothing more than a temporary chemical imbalance. Marriage was a contract. People were investments. And perhaps no one knew that better than Elena. She was his wife, yes, but not in the way people imagined. Their wedding had been private, without grand gestures. Just 2 signatures and silence. Elena had been radiant that day, her heart swelling with hope, believing love would grow with time. It didn't. From the moment she moved into his world of glass and chrome, she became invisible. Daniel was always elsewhere. Meetings, calls, flights. He'd leave at dawn and return at midnight, barely touching her hand, rarely meeting her eyes. When he spoke to her, it was with polite detachment, as if she were a guest in a hotel he managed. "Daniel, I thought we could have dinner together tonight. I cooked something special," she once said, her voice trembling with excitement. He didn't even look up from his phone. "I already ate. There's wine in the cellar if you want. I have to review reports." Just like that, her warmth dissolved into the cold air of their silent apartment. She waited. Days became months. Birthdays passed unspoken. Anniversaries forgotten. She had given up her career, her dreams, her city, everything to stand by him. And yet, the more she gave, the more she disappeared. One night, in the dim glow of the kitchen, she sat on the floor with her knees hugged to her chest, tears soaking into her pajama sleeves. She wasn't angry, just hollow. She had begun to forget who she was before she became Mrs. Daniel Kong. In that silence, she whispered to herself, "Does he even see me anymore?" But the truth was harder than that. He never really did. Daniel wasn't cruel. He didn't shout, didn't hurt her with fists or insults. But he hurt her with something more invisible, more painful: absence. A kind of abandonment that sat across from her at breakfast, walked past her at night, and looked through her like glass. One evening, Elena found a folder left carelessly on the kitchen counter. Inside were photos. Daniel. Another woman. A hotel in Tokyo. The world spun. She didn't scream. She didn't call him. She simply stared at the photos, her lips trembling, her heart splitting in silent agony. She waited until he came home that night, late, as always. He looked surprised to see her awake. "Elena," he said, loosening his tie. "What's wrong?" She held up the folder with shaking hands. "Tell me this isn't you." He glanced at it, then sighed, as if irritated by inconvenience. "I didn't want it to come out this way," he said coolly. "But I suppose it was inevitable." That was all. No apology. No regret. Just inevitability. "I'm filing for divorce," he added, his voice as flat as his tie on the counter. "This isn't working. It hasn't been working. We want different things." She stared at him, heart crumbling. "I never asked for anything but your time. Your heart." Daniel's gaze didn't waver. "I don't have time for emotions, Elena. You knew who I was when we married." Her voice broke. "No. I thought I did. But you were never a man. You were a machine." A silence stretched between them, and for the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not regret, but weariness. He walked away. That night, as she lay in the bed they once shared, she placed her hand over her stomach. The pregnancy test lay beside her pillow. Positive. A child. A life. Part of him, inside her. Her tears came like a flood, silent and unstoppable. He would never know. She would not give him the right to break another heart. She disappeared the next morning. No note. No farewell. Just gone. And Daniel. He returned home to an empty apartment, mildly puzzled by the silence, but ultimately unbothered. He poured himself a drink, stared out at the city, and convinced himself she had left because she wasn't strong enough for his world. "She'll be fine," he muttered. "She always wanted more than I could give." And with that, he buried her in the graveyard of things he didn't have time for. But the universe remembers the hearts we shatter. And time always brings back what we throw away. Even if it returns wearing a different face, and holding the hands of two little boys with eyes just like his. The train station was nearly empty, just the sound of soft heels on the platform and the distant hum of approaching cars. Elena clutched her coat tightly around her belly, even though it wasn't cold. Her long hair was tied back, her face pale but composed. In her left hand, a single suitcase. In her right, the envelope containing her ultrasound. She hadn't looked at it again since the hospital. 2 heartbeats. 2. She had spent the night on the bathroom floor, the fluorescent light flickering above her like some cruel interrogation lamp. Her body still trembled from the shock. Twins. Alone. With no job. No home. No family to turn to. But not a single tear fell. It was as if she had emptied herself of grief the night before, and now only a quiet, determined numbness remained. Next stop, Busan, the announcement called. She boarded without turning back. It wasn't running away. It was survival. She found a small guest house at the edge of the city. Old, faded, with walls that creaked when you walked. The landlady was kind, but curious. "You came alone?" she asked, squinting. "Yes. Just for a while." "Family?" "No," Elena replied softly, her hand unconsciously resting over her belly. She got a job in a tiny cafe down the street. She washed dishes in the back, hidden from customers. The hours were long, the pay low. Her fingers blistered. Her ankles swelled. She fainted once. Her boss almost fired her. But she begged. She cried just that once. And he let her stay. Months passed. Her belly grew. She wrote in a journal every night. Letters to the children inside her. "You don't know the world yet," she wrote. "But when you come, I promise to hold you like the sky holds the stars. You won't need a father who never saw you. You'll have me. I'll be enough." And she meant it. But there were days, silent days, when the wind outside the cafe windows would howl and her chest would ache. When she'd see a couple walking hand in hand and wonder if love ever truly existed, or if it was just a thing books invented to keep lonely people alive. One rainy afternoon, as she closed the cafe, she sat on the back steps in her apron, her feet in a puddle, eyes closed. A man passed by, looked at her swollen belly, then at her face. "Are you okay?" he asked, hesitant. She smiled. "I will be." She never asked for help. She never told anyone the father's name. Because the truth was too painful. Too shameful. To say Daniel Kong had once called her his wife felt like speaking of a fever dream long gone. But time didn't stop. And neither did the babies growing inside her. The night her water broke, she was alone. No one to call. No hands to hold hers. She took a taxi to the hospital with nothing but a blanket and a trembling voice. The delivery was long. Complicated. The doctors grew nervous. One of the baby's heartbeats dropped suddenly. "Emergency C-section," someone shouted. She didn't understand. The light above the table blurred. She tried to speak, but her mouth felt like cotton. "Please," she whispered. "Save them. Even if you don't save me." She remembered the cold of the surgical room. Then, darkness. When she opened her eyes, it was morning. The nurse by her bed smiled gently. "They're both safe. 2 boys. Tiny, but strong." Elena turned her head slowly and saw 2 incubators through the window. 2 small beings, covered in wires, breathing, alive. She didn't have the strength to cry. But her soul wept. Later that day, when she was strong enough to stand, she walked to the window, pressed her palm to the glass, and whispered their names. Liam. Noah. And in that moment, everything she had lost, every betrayal, every silence, every night spent aching in a cold bed, was washed away. Because they were here. They were hers. And she had survived. Days turned into weeks. The hospital bills piled up. She began skipping meals to afford diapers. There were nights she rocked them to sleep while biting her lip to hold back sobs, not because she regretted anything, but because she didn't know how long she could keep going. But she did. Eventually, she found a program for single mothers, run by a woman named Mrs. Hahn, a retired businesswoman who saw something in Elena. A quiet strength. A steel beneath the softness. Mrs. Hahn offered her a room. Then a part-time job. Then mentorship. You have an eye for detail, she said, watching Elena rearrange flowers on a table. Have you ever thought about interior design? Elena blinked. I studied architecture once. But I gave it up. Mrs. Hahn placed a hand on her shoulder. Maybe it's time to take it back. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, she did. She studied at night, after putting the twins to bed. She worked during the day. She built a small portfolio, one client at a time. Word spread of her taste, her grace, her ability to turn broken spaces into warmth. Just like she had done with her own life. The boys grew up surrounded by color and kindness. They didn't have luxury, but they had laughter. They didn't know their father's name, but they knew their mother's heart. Sometimes, late at night, Elena would sit by the window, tea in hand, and stare out at the moon. She would remember the woman she used to be, the one who waited for love in a silent apartment. And she would whisper to the stars, "Thank you for breaking me, because that was the only way I could rebuild." What she didn't know, what she couldn't imagine, was that fate was quietly circling back. That far away, in a tower of steel and cold ambition, the man she had once called husband would soon come face to face with the life he threw away. The gala was a sea of glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos, a symphony of clinking glasses and polished laughter echoing under the chandeliers. It was the annual Hearts of Soul charity benefit, where power, elegance, and social hierarchy danced politely beneath 1,000 lights. Daniel Kong stood in the center of it all, unmoved. He wore a charcoal suit that had been custom-stitched in Milan, and a watch worth more than most people's annual salaries. His hair was slicked back, his expression unreadable as he nodded to shareholders and exchanged pleasantries with mayors, actors, and CEOs. His assistant hovered nearby with a tablet in hand, listing investors by importance. He didn't care. The only thing on his mind that night was silence. He had everything. Everything he thought he wanted. But lately, when he returned to his penthouse overlooking the city, he'd find himself standing at the window, hands in pockets, staring into the blackness. Not at anything in particular. Just searching for something he couldn't name. He didn't know why. He didn't feel unhappy. But the world felt quieter than before. Colder. Like he was watching life through glass. He wasn't expecting anything unusual that night. Just another event, another photo, another speech. Until he heard the name. Elena Park, founder of Linea Design Group, just arrived, someone murmured behind him. He froze. No. It couldn't be. He turned, slowly. And there she was. Across the ballroom, framed by the golden arch of the entry, she stepped in with graceful calm. Her hair was in soft waves, her dress deep emerald silk that hugged her waist, and around her neck, no jewelry, just bare skin and confidence. But it was her eyes that struck him hardest. He remembered those eyes. He had seen them years ago, full of longing and pain. But now, they were unreadable. Self-assured. Not defiant, not cold, just free. The world seemed to quiet around him. She didn't notice him right away. She was speaking with someone, laughing gently. Her hand rested on the shoulder of a child. No, 2 children. 2 little boys in matching formal outfits, one holding a small camera, the other spinning in excitement, pointing at the chandeliers above them. And then she looked up. Her eyes met his. For a moment, the world stopped. Neither of them moved. She didn't gasp. She didn't flinch. She simply looked at him, like he was just another guest in the room. And then she turned away. His chest tightened. "Elena," he whispered to himself, as if saying her name would anchor him to the ground that had just shifted beneath him. His assistant leaned in, confused. "Sir, are you all right?" Daniel couldn't hear him. He was already walking. Each step toward her felt like pushing through water. He watched her crouch beside one of the boys and whisper something. The boy giggled, then nodded. She stood again, straightened her dress and turned, only to find him standing right there. Her face didn't change. "Daniel," she said softly, as if greeting an old acquaintance. He stared at her. So close now. She smelled like jasmine and something warmer. "Home." "Elena." His voice cracked, just slightly. She raised an eyebrow. "You look different." "I am," she said. "It's been 6 years. 6 years." He repeated the number in his head like a curse. "I didn't know you were alive," she finished. Yes. That was intentional. He felt the sting in those words, sharp and cold. "I thought you disappeared." "I did." Her eyes flicked to the children, then back to him. "It was the only way I could survive." His throat closed. He wanted to say so many things, but all that came out was, "Those boys, are they?" "Yes," she said, with no hesitation. "They're yours." Time collapsed. He looked at them again, really looked. Their faces, the shape of their eyes, the way one stood with his hands behind his back, just like he used to as a child. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice rough. She tilted her head. "Because you told me you didn't have time for emotions. You said you didn't want a family. So I didn't think you deserved one." The words hit like stones. He remembered every moment she was alone in that apartment. Every missed dinner. Every cold answer. "I was wrong," he murmured. "Yes," she replied, not angrily, just truthfully. "You were." He swallowed hard. "Can we talk? Privately?" She glanced at the boys. "Not tonight. This isn't your night. It's theirs." "Elena, please. They don't know who you are," she said, a little softer now. "They've never asked about their father. They've never needed to." He looked at her, and for the first time in years, he felt something crack inside him. Not regret. Something deeper. Like grief for a life unlived. She placed a hand on his arm. Gently. Not affectionately. Just to steady him. "I don't hate you," she whispered. "I just don't need you anymore." And then she turned away. He stood there as she walked back to the boys, who ran up to her, each grabbing a hand. She bent down, kissed them both on the forehead, and led them toward the garden balcony. He watched the 3 of them disappear through the glass doors into the soft night. He didn't move. Didn't speak. All around him, people continued to laugh and toast and smile. But Daniel Kong, once untouchable, once invincible, stood frozen in the middle of the ballroom. The ballroom had long emptied, and yet Daniel sat in the back seat of his black car, engine off, staring out at the city like a man who had just walked through a fire and left part of himself behind. He didn't know how long he'd been there. The lights blurred through the windshield, and the city noise felt muffled, like he was submerged underwater. Elena. Twins. His children. The realization sat on his chest like a boulder, refusing to let him breathe. He had imagined every possible future for himself. More companies, more awards, more zeros in his bank account. But never once had he imagined this. 2 children he never met, growing up without him, learning to walk, to speak, to live, while he signed merger deals in silence. The memory of their faces, one spinning in wonder, the other clutching his mother's hand, looped in his head like a haunting melody. He clenched his jaw and reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out his phone. He hesitated, fingers hovering over her name. He had never deleted it. But he didn't call. He didn't know what to say. I'm sorry. Too late. I want to be part of their lives. Too selfish. He shut his eyes and leaned back, letting the silence swallow him. The next morning, he stood outside the front gate of Linea Design Group, Elena's firm. A clean, elegant building tucked between a boutique hotel and a florist shop. He wasn't sure what he was doing there. He hadn't made an appointment. He hadn't even planned what to say. But his feet moved anyway. At the reception desk, the young woman blinked when she saw him. "You're Mr. Kong," she said slowly. "You're here for Mississippi Park?" He nodded. "If she'll see me." The assistant hesitated, then buzzed the office. Minutes later, the door opened. Elena stood there in a cream blouse and slate-gray trousers, hair pinned up, her eyes unreadable. She didn't look surprised. Only tired. "You're early," she said. "I didn't know I had an appointment." "You don't. Then why did you let me in?" She crossed her arms. "Because I knew you'd come." He stepped inside. The office smelled like lavender and clean wood. Her touch was everywhere. Softness without fragility. Warmth without excess. It hurt, somehow. She gestured for him to sit. He didn't. "I wanted to see them," he said, voice low. "The boys. They're at school." He nodded. "I figured. I just needed to come." Elena leaned against the desk, watching him. "Why?" she asked gently. Daniel exhaled. "Because I can't stop thinking about them. About you. About what I lost." She tilted her head. "No. Not lost. Threw away." He looked down, ashamed. "You have every right to hate me," he said. "I don't," she replied softly. "I used to. But hate is heavy. And I've carried enough." He looked at her for a long moment. "I didn't know you were pregnant. If I had..." "You would've what?" she cut in. "Given me a monthly allowance? Sent a lawyer to arrange custody." Her voice wasn't bitter, just heartbreakingly honest. "You wouldn't have stayed, Daniel. You weren't capable of love back then. You treated emotions like viruses. I was suffocating in your shadow." He winced, but she continued. "I begged you for dinners. 4 smiles. I lived like a ghost in your home. And when I finally found out I was carrying life inside me, I had to choose. Do I bring them into a world where they'll be ignored, like I was? Or do I build something new, even if I have to bleed for it?" He opened his mouth to respond, but she wasn't finished. "I chose them. I chose peace." Silence hung between them. "I want to know them," he said at last. "I'm not asking for anything from you. But I can't pretend they don't exist. I saw their eyes, Elena." "I know," she said quietly. "They have your eyes." The room dimmed with the weight of things unsaid. "They don't know about me?" he asked. "No," she replied. "I didn't want to plant questions I couldn't answer. I didn't want them to wait for a father who might never come." Daniel closed his eyes, fighting the sting behind them. "I can't undo the past," he said. "But I'm not the same man. Let me try. Let me at least meet them." She looked at him for a long time. Then, with a sigh, she turned to the window. "They have a school play tomorrow night. They're both nervous. Liam has one line. Noah's in charge of the curtain rope." A pause. "You can come," she said softly. His breath caught. "Thank you. But if you scare them," she added, turning back to him, "if you show up like a stranger and try to buy their affection, I will never let you near them again." "I won't," he said, voice barely a whisper. "I promise." She nodded once. The meeting was over. But as he walked out of her office and into the cold light of day, Daniel felt something shift inside him, a mixture of terror and hope. The man who had conquered empires was now trembling at the thought of meeting two small boys. His sons. He didn't know what kind of father he could be, or if he even deserved the title. But for the first time in his life, he wanted to try. Not to fix the past, but to be present for a future he never thought he'd have. The auditorium buzzed with the hum of restless parents and rustling programs. Folded chairs squeaked against polished floors as children peeked through stage curtains, giggling and whispering. Paper stars and cardboard trees framed the set, lit by warm spotlights that flickered as the technician fumbled with the controls. Daniel stood in the farthest corner near the exit, dressed in a dark coat, hands clenched in his pockets. He felt like a stranger at the threshold of something sacred. He wasn't used to this kind of noise, this ordinary chaos filled with juicebox energy and crayon-colored excitement. He didn't belong here. Not really. But still, he stayed. He glanced at the program Elena had left for him at the front desk. Winter Wishes, performed by Class 1B, Liam Park, Star Child, Noah Park. Curtain Manager. He read the names again and again, as if trying to convince himself they were real. His children. He didn't see Elena yet, but he didn't expect to. She was always careful, always one step ahead. She knew this was already too much for one night. The lights dimmed. A hush fell. The curtain opened awkwardly, a little too fast on one side. A small boy yelped behind the rope. "Sorry," came a voice. It was soft, high-pitched, sweet. Daniel blinked. Noah. He was standing at the edge of the curtain, biting his lip nervously, eyes flickering toward the audience, then back to the mechanism in his tiny hands. Then came Liam, center stage, in a glittering silver tunic and a paper crown. His face was lit up with excitement and a hint of fear. He stepped forward, gripping a paper star in both hands. And then, he began to speak. In the sky, where dreams begin, a star was born, with light within. He traveled far through wind and snow, to find a place where hope could grow. His voice wasn't perfect, it cracked a little in the middle, but it was pure, steady, and full of heart. Daniel couldn't move. Every syllable was a thunderclap inside him. He watched the way Liam's eyes lit up as the spotlight followed him, the way Noah peeked from behind the curtain with a tiny thumbs up when his brother stumbled on a word. A bond. A world he hadn't touched. When the play ended, the applause came loud and warm. Parents cheered. Phones lit up the dark as everyone scrambled for pictures and videos. Daniel remained still, his hands trembling slightly. He didn't know if he was allowed to move, to breathe, to want. Then he saw her, Elena. She had been seated quietly in the second row, her coat folded neatly on her lap, clapping with quiet pride. Her eyes glistened. She wasn't recording. She was just watching, like she didn't want to miss a single heartbeat. When the lights came back on, children spilled from backstage, hugging their parents, running through legs and coats and candy bags. Daniel stayed in place, heart pounding. Then, a voice. "Mommy." Liam's voice cut through the noise as he ran straight into Elena's arms, Noah following right behind. They clung to her like magnets, giggling, talking over one another. "Did you see my crown? I pulled the curtain almost perfect. I didn't forget any lines, only one word." Elena laughed, hugging them both tightly. "You were stars. Both of you." Daniel stepped forward, slowly, like walking on cracked glass. He cleared his throat. Elena turned first, sensing him before she saw him. "Hey," she said softly, eyes gentle but alert. The boys turned too. Their faces were curious. Daniel crouched slightly, suddenly unsure of what to do with his hands. "Hi," he said quietly. You were amazing tonight. Both of you." The twins blinked. Liam tilted his head. "Do we know you?" Daniel's throat tightened. He looked up at Elena for permission. She nodded once. "I'm a friend of your mom's," he said carefully. "A very old friend. I came to see you perform." Noah stepped forward, eyes squinting. "You look like me." Daniel let out the smallest laugh, choked by surprise. "Yeah," he said, kneeling fully now. "I guess we do look a little alike." Liam studied him. "Did you really come just to see us?" Daniel nodded. "I wouldn't have missed it for anything." The boys looked at each other. Then, without warning, Noah stepped forward and reached out a small hand, touching Daniel's wrist. His voice was almost a whisper. "You looked like you were gonna cry." Daniel blinked. "I think I did," he admitted. "Why?" Liam asked. "Because I was proud." A silence fell between them, not uncomfortable, just heavy with newness. And then, as if by instinct, Noah said, "Wanna sit with us for cake?" Daniel looked at Elena, heart in his throat. She hesitated, just a moment, then nodded. And so, for the first time in his life, Daniel sat at a tiny cafeteria table with plastic forks and chocolate cupcakes, surrounded by laughter that wasn't bought, applause that wasn't earned by strategy, and two boys who didn't yet know what he had been. Only what he might become. The cafeteria lights were too bright. The floor was sticky. Someone spilled punch 3 tables down. But Daniel had never known a room so full of light. He watched the twins, their frosting-covered smiles, their hands waving as they spoke. And quietly, without realizing it, he whispered something to himself. "Thank you for letting me in." He didn't know who he was speaking to, Elena, fate, the universe, but it didn't matter. He was no longer behind the glass. He was inside the moment. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a machine. Paper decorations fluttered as parents packed up costumes, wrapped leftover cupcakes in napkins, and called out to their children. The hum of excitement faded into soft echoes and the occasional shriek of a child refusing to leave. But at one small table near the windows, time seemed to stretch. Daniel sat with a crumpled napkin in his hand, frosting on his thumb, and a quiet, unfamiliar tightness in his chest. Noah had fallen asleep leaning against Elena's shoulder, his tiny fingers curled around the edge of her sleeve. Liam sat beside Daniel, drawing something on a juice-stained napkin with a red crayon. He didn't know what to say. He had spent a lifetime controlling rooms, dominating deals, orchestrating empires. But now, with a 6-year-old boy tracing shaky stars on paper, he was lost in his own silence. "Is this your first play?" Liam asked suddenly, not looking up from his drawing. Daniel blinked. "Mine. Yeah. Like, the first time you came to one." He hesitated. "Yeah, it is." Liam looked up then, smiling with a gap between his front teeth. "You should come to more." Daniel's breath hitched. "I'd like that." Across the table, Elena studied him quietly, eyes soft but unreadable. There was something about the way she sat, so composed, yet guarded, that told him she was waiting. Not for an apology. Not for a miracle. Just for consistency. "I should get them home," she said gently, brushing Noah's hair from his forehead. "It's late. Can I help carry him to the car?" Daniel offered before he could stop himself. Elena hesitated. And then, quietly, she nodded. Outside, the night was cold, with the kind of wind that whistled between buildings and chased shadows across the parking lot. Elena unlocked her modest SUV, and Daniel gently lifted Noah into his arms. The boy stirred briefly, mumbling, "Mommy, cold." Daniel's heart clenched. "I've got you," he whispered, voice catching. He placed the boy in the car seat like he was carrying something sacred. Liam climbed in after him, still holding the red crayon. When the door shut, Daniel turned back to Elena. She stood near the driver's side, hands wrapped around herself. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I almost didn't." She nodded slowly. "But I'm glad you did." Daniel took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Elena, seeing them tonight, being near them, I felt something I can't explain. It's like I've been walking around empty for years and I didn't even know it." "I knew," she said softly. "I saw it in your eyes the night you signed the divorce papers." His voice cracked. "You were right to leave. Her eyes shimmered in the dim parking lot lights. "I didn't leave to punish you," she said. "I left to protect them. And myself." He nodded. "I know that now." A long silence passed between them. The wind picked up, swirling leaves across the pavement. Then she asked the question he feared most. "What do you want, Daniel?" It wasn't accusatory. It was quiet, heavy, real. He looked at her, really looked at her. The way her hair curled at the ends, the worry lines near her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture. "I don't know if I deserve it," he said. "But I want to try. To be in their lives. To be a father." Elena looked down, then back at the car. "They're not used to men staying," she whispered. "They're teachers, they're doctors, our neighbors. Most people come and go. They only know what I've given them. Stability. Safety. I understand. If you come in," she continued, "you come in all the way. No disappearing when it gets hard. No excuses. If you disappoint them, Daniel, they won't cry like I did. They'll break." His throat closed. "I won't run," he said. "Not this time." She searched his face for something. For truth, maybe. Or guilt. Or time-worn sincerity. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "But not for you. For them." He nodded. "Can I call you?" he asked. She gave a small smile. "You already have my number. You just never used it." He watched her get into the car, watched as she adjusted the rearview mirror and reached back to check on the boys. Then the engine rumbled softly, headlights casting long shadows. As she pulled out of the lot, Daniel stood alone under the flickering street lamp. He shoved his hands into his coat pockets, only to find something soft, Liam's napkin drawing, folded and slightly crumpled. He opened it. It was a crooked version of the stage, with stars drawn above stick figures. There were 3 of them holding hands. A tall figure in the middle, with spiky hair and a crown. 2 small boys on either side. And below it, written in shaky red crayon, "Star Family." Daniel's chest cracked open. He folded the drawing carefully, pressed it to his chest, and whispered into the empty lot. "I want to earn this." He didn't go home. Instead, Daniel found himself driving without direction, the city rolling past in a blur of neon signs, late-night street vendors, and hazy windows. The crumpled napkin drawing sat carefully on the passenger seat, untouched. Like a fragile map to a world he didn't know how to re-enter. At a red light, he let his head fall back against the seat. Why now? Why, after all these years, did it suddenly matter? Why did 2 little faces burn through every layer of armor he had spent a lifetime building? And more than that, why did he feel afraid? When the light turned green, he didn't move. Cars honked behind him, but he didn't care. Something inside him was unraveling, and it was terrifying. He finally pulled into an underground parking lot, entered his penthouse in silence, and collapsed onto the couch without even taking off his coat. The city stretched out below him like a sea of blinking lights. He had never felt so alone. But then he reached into his coat pocket again, unfolded the napkin, and stared at the child's drawing until sleep finally claimed him. The next morning, Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He called in sick. No board meetings. No emails. No headlines. Just quiet. He stood in his kitchen, untouched for weeks, staring at the empty counter. Something stirred in him, something he couldn't name. He took out a notebook and wrote one name, Liam. Then, beneath it, likes, stars, crowns, red crayons. Noah. Likes, ropes, giggling, frosting. His pen hovered. What else? What did they like to eat? What made them scared? Who was their favorite superhero? He didn't know. And that terrified him more than any hostile takeover ever could. Later that week, Elena called. Her name on the screen made his heart jolt. He answered immediately, trying to keep his voice even. "Hello. They have swimming lessons on Saturday. I thought, if you wanted you could come." Just watch. His chest warmed. Yes. I'd love to. A pause. Don't bring anything, she said. No gifts. No surprises. Just you. Okay, he said. Just me. When Saturday came, Daniel stood behind the large glass pane that looked into the pool, hands in his coat pockets, trying not to look like he didn't belong. The air inside was warm and thick with chlorine, muffling the squeals and splashes of children below. He spotted them instantly. Liam was in floaties, kicking his legs with determination. Noah was holding the instructor's hand, grinning, until he slipped under for a second, then came up laughing. Daniel smiled without realizing it. He didn't move. Just watched. 30 minutes later, Elena walked up beside him, her hair tied back, a reusable coffee cup in hand. They're still learning, she said. Noah's fearless. Liam takes more time. He nodded, eyes still on the pool. I was like that. She glanced at him. He looked different. Tired. But softer. You've been quiet, she said. I've been thinking. About everything I missed. Elena looked away. That's a dangerous path. I know. But I need to walk it. Another silence. Then she spoke, carefully. They asked about you. He froze. What did you tell them? That you were someone important. Not just to me, but to them. I told them we were going to take it slow. He swallowed hard. What did they say? She smiled faintly. Noah asked if you had snacks. Liam wanted to know if you had a spaceship. Daniel chuckled, the sound catching in his throat. I can try to get both, he said. Don't, she warned gently. They don't need a hero, Daniel. They just need someone who shows up. He looked at her then, really looked. I will. I swear I will. The boys came running up after the lesson, dripping wet and wrapped in towels. Did you see me jump? Noah shouted. I floated all the way across. Liam added proudly. Daniel crouched down. I saw everything. You two were incredible. Noah reached into his swim bag and pulled out a damp cookie, offering it to Daniel. It's for you. Daniel hesitated, then smiled. He took it. And ate it. Best cookie I've ever had. The boys beamed. Elena stood back, watching the three of them. Her heart ached. Not from pain. From the quiet, terrifying possibility that this might finally be something real. Later, as they walked to the parking lot, Liam reached for Daniel's hand. Just like that. No words. No fanfare. Just a small hand slipping into his, as natural as breath. And Daniel's world shifted. Again. He held on like it was the only thing keeping him upright. The sky was soft gray by the time they reached Elena's apartment. The boys were fast asleep in the back seat, their heads tilted opposite each other, breathing in rhythm. Elena glanced at the rearview mirror, then to Daniel, who sat in the passenger seat with his coat folded on his lap, quiet. Neither of them had spoken much since the swimming lesson. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was something more fragile, like a truce. When she parked in front of the small complex, she turned to him. Do you want to carry Noah up? He nodded without hesitation. She opened the door, and together, they gently unbuckled the boys, cradling them with the care of something irreplaceable. Daniel held Noah against his chest, and the child curled into him naturally, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. As they walked up the narrow stairwell, Daniel glanced around. Faded wallpaper, cracked tile, a single potted plant that had lost half its leaves. You live here? He asked gently. Elena nodded. It's small. But it's safe. The landlord's kind. He didn't say anything, but something twisted in his gut. He could buy her a home tomorrow, 10 homes. He could give the boys the life they deserved. But he knew better than to say it. That wasn't what she wanted. That wasn't what she fought for. Inside, the apartment was warm. Modest. A few drawings taped to the fridge. A pile of books by the couch. A stack of laundry half folded on the table. Home. Daniel laid Noah on the lower bunk in the boys' shared room. Elena tucked Liam into the top. She kissed their foreheads, adjusted their blankets. Then quietly, they both stepped back into the living room. Elena poured tea into chipped mugs. Daniel took his with a quiet nod and sat on the edge of the sofa. The silence between them was no longer filled with history. It was filled with now, and with what comes next. He broke it first. "Why didn't you ever call me?" Elena didn't look up. "I wanted to. Once." "What stopped you?" She looked at him then, not angry, just tired. "You did." Daniel swallowed hard. "I was scared," she continued. "I didn't know what you'd say. Or what I'd say if you asked me to come back. I was still in love with the version of you I thought existed. And that scared me more than anything." He looked down at the tea. "And when the boys were born? I was recovering from the C-section. I had no job. No money. Noah had trouble breathing the first few days. I barely slept." Her voice grew softer. "I didn't have space for grief. I just had to survive." Daniel's hands clenched around the mug. "Elena, I didn't know." "I know you didn't. I should have." She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "There were nights I'd wake up with them crying, both at once, and I'd think, if I call him now, if I tell him, would he come? And then I'd remember the way you looked at me the night you walked out. Like I was a burden. Like love was a currency I couldn't afford." Daniel looked like he'd been punched. "I was wrong," he said, voice breaking. "I didn't know what love was." "No. You didn't." A long silence. And then, her voice softened. "But you're trying now. That matters." He looked up at her. "Does it matter enough?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she turned away, walked to a drawer, and pulled something out. A small envelope, aged and fraying at the corners. "I was going to mail this to you," she said, handing it over. He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a sonogram. 2 tiny shapes in a black ocean of grainy shadows. One curled tight, the other stretching a hand. The back had handwriting. "They'll never know you unless you choose to be different than you were. I won't beg you. But I will protect them." No signature. Just that. Daniel felt the tears rise, but he blinked them away. "I would have come," he said. "But would you have stayed?" He didn't answer. She sat beside him, not close, not far. "Daniel, I'm not the woman I used to be. I don't need saving. And the boys don't need fixing. They're happy. They're whole. I'm not trying to fix them," he said softly. "I just want to learn. To be part of it." Her eyes flicked to his. "Then you need to start from the beginning. Not as a man with money. But as a man they can count on." "I don't know how," he admitted. "You didn't know how to be a CEO once. You learned. This is different. It's harder," she said. "Which is why it's worth it." He looked at her, at the woman who had walked through fire and came out stronger, brighter. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he said. She stood, taking his empty mug. "It's not about what you deserve. It's about what you choose next." As he walked to the door, she called after him. "They have soccer practice on Wednesday. Bring snacks." He turned back, something tender blooming behind his eyes. "What kind?" She smiled. "Liam likes strawberry milk. Noah will eat anything if you tell him it's a secret." He laughed quietly. "Got it." And as he stepped into the hallway, the door closing gently behind him, Daniel felt something unfamiliar inside him. Hope. But fragile. Like something that had to be earned, day by day. And far away in the shadows of his mind, a question stirred. What other truths still hadn't been said? What else did he not know about those missing 6 years? Emails went unread. The boardroom felt distant. Meetings blurred. For the first time in his career, he didn't mind the missed calls. He was too busy standing in supermarket aisles, scanning labels on strawberry milk cartons, holding packets of chocolate cookies with cartoon bears, unsure if they were too sugary or just sugary enough. He Googled snack ideas, read about kids' soccer drills, and spent hours online reading about how to braid little boy hair, just in case. And then Wednesday came. The soccer field was nothing like the pristine athletic clubs he used to sponsor. It was tucked behind an elementary school, framed by a rusted fence and patchy grass. A few cones. A fold-out bench. But to Daniel, it felt like a stadium. He stood near the edge of the field with a small brown bag in one hand, 2 strawberry milks, a banana for good measure, and some snacks he hoped weren't embarrassing. Then he saw them. Liam and Noah, running onto the field with 2 large jerseys and cleats that looked like they'd been handed down. Elena walked behind them, her long coat catching in the breeze, hair up, smile soft. She met Daniel's eyes. He raised the bag slightly. "I brought supplies." She gave him a nod of approval, but said nothing. Just sat beside him on the bench and pulled out a small thermos. For the next hour, they watched. Noah tripped twice, laughed each time. Liam ran with cautious precision, like every step had to be calculated before he took it. "They're different," Daniel said, quietly. "They're twins, not copies," Elena replied. Liam thinks deeply before he speaks. Noah acts first, then wonders why. He smiled, watching them. "Do they fight a lot?" "Only over crayons." "And which one gets the first bath?" Daniel leaned back, eyes never leaving the boys. "I missed so much." "Yes. I don't know how to forgive myself for that." Elena turned to him. "That's not your job. Your job is to make sure you don't miss now." Suddenly, Liam waved from across the field. "Mr. Daniel. Watch me." Daniel froze. Elena looked at him. "You told them to call you that?" He shook his head, throat tight. "No. I didn't tell them anything." She tilted her head. "Then maybe they're still deciding who you get to be." He stood, heart pounding. "I'm watching, Liam. Go." Liam ran toward the goal, passed the ball twice, then missed the net entirely. But his smile beamed anyway. Noah ran up behind him, arms spread like wings. "We're jet planes." Daniel laughed. "Best jet planes I've ever seen." After practice, the boys ran toward him, out of breath and muddy. "Did you see me pass?" Liam asked. "Did you see me fall and not cry?" Noah added proudly. "I saw it all," Daniel said, kneeling. "You two were amazing." Then Noah looked up at him with sudden curiosity. "Why don't you live with us?" Daniel's heart stopped. Liam chimed in. "Yeah. You're here a lot now. Are you gonna stay forever?" Elena stepped forward, tension in her shoulders. "Boys." "No, it's okay," Daniel said softly. He turned to them. "I don't live with you because, a long time ago, I made some mistakes. I didn't know how to be the kind of person who deserved a family. But I'm learning now. And I'm not going anywhere." The boys looked at each other. Then, in quiet agreement, Noah handed him a soggy cookie from his coat pocket. "Then you can be on our team," he said. Daniel took it like it was a trophy. "Thank you, teammate." They walked together to the car, laughter trailing behind them. That night, Elena stood at her kitchen sink, scrubbing the boys' mud-streaked uniforms. Daniel was still sitting at the dining table, sipping tea, watching the twins draw on construction paper. He hesitated. Then, finally, "Elena, there's something I want to ask. And I need you to be honest." She turned, wiping her hands. "All right. That day I left, when I filed for divorce, were you already pregnant?" Her eyes darkened, not in anger, but with memory. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" She leaned against the counter, folding her arms. "Because I wasn't sure you'd care." "I would have," he whispered, the pain in his voice raw. "I should have known. I should have seen. But you didn't," she said, cutting gently. And by the time I knew for sure, by the time I had processed the shock, you were already gone. Daniel's throat burned. I spent years thinking I'd just been left. No explanation. No note. I told myself you were weak for walking away. And now. He looked at her. Really looked. And now I know you were stronger than I ever was. She took a breath. I didn't leave to hurt you, Daniel. I left to save myself. And them. They deserved better than a house without laughter. I couldn't raise them in a home where I cried myself to sleep. He pressed his hand to his face, ashamed. God, Elena. I don't tell you this to punish you, she added. I tell you because if we're going to move forward, for their sake, you need to know what your silence cost. He nodded slowly. I do. I'm starting to understand. A pause. Then he looked at her, eyes glistening. Can I tell them someday? Everything. Not now. Not soon. But, one day. She watched him for a long moment. Then, softly, if you earn it. He nodded. That night, as he stood at the door ready to leave, Noah rushed up and hugged him around the leg. Liam followed, slipping something into his hand. It was a drawing. 3 stick figures again, him, Noah, and Liam. But this time, there was a 4th. A tall figure beside the rest, with a scribbled heart above her head. Daniel looked up, and Elena was already walking away, her back turned, the soft hum of a lullaby floating from her lips. He stood in the hallway, staring at the picture, and realized the boys already saw him as part of their world. Now, all he had to do was not disappear again. Saturday came with rain. Not the gentle kind, but the kind that painted the city in streaks of gray, drumming on windows and leaving puddles in every sidewalk corner. The soccer game was cancelled, and the boys were restless. Elena texted Daniel in the morning. They're climbing the walls. If you want to help tire them out, come over by noon. He stared at the message for a full minute. Then, I'll be there. By the time he arrived, the apartment was filled with the smell of something sweet. Chocolate chip pancakes, slightly burnt. He stepped inside, umbrella dripping, to the sound of chaos. Put it down, Noah. He started it. I finished it. Elena met him at the door, hair up in a messy bun, flour on her sweater. You sure you're ready for this? She asked, handing him a towel for his hair. He smiled. I've closed a 12 billion won merger in under an hour. I think I can handle 2 6-year-olds. She raised a brow. Famous last words. Inside, the boys had built a fortress from couch cushions and blankets. Plastic swords were stuck between pillows, a handmade flag fluttering from a mop handle. Liam was wearing a cape made from an old towel. Noah had goggles on for no reason at all. Daniel! Noah shouted. You're on our team now. Which one? He asked, stepping out of his shoes. Team Dragonfire. We're fighting Team Darkness. Liam added. Daniel grinned. I've always wanted to be a dragon. Too bad, Noah said. You're the wizard. Daniel blinked. Wait, the wizard? Yeah, old. Mysterious. Powerful. Elena snorted into her coffee mug from the kitchen. Great, Daniel muttered, kneeling to accept his role. Old wizard. Got it. He spent the next 2 hours casting fake spells, crawling through blanket tunnels, and being defeated dramatically by foam swords. They giggled every time he overacted his death. At one point, Noah flung himself into Daniel's lap, sweaty and laughing. You're funny for a grown-up. Thanks, Daniel said, panting. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me this week. Liam, quieter, stood by the window, watching the rain. His cape trailed behind him. Daniel approached slowly. Something wrong. Liam glanced at him. Do you work a lot? Daniel hesitated. I used to. All the time. But not anymore. Why not? He crouched beside him. Because I found something more important. Liam looked up. blinking. Us. Daniel nodded, his voice soft. Yeah. You. Liam's voice lowered. People leave sometimes. They say they'll come back. But they don't. Daniel's chest tightened. I know, he said. And that's not fair to you. But I promise, I'm not going anywhere. The boy was quiet for a long moment. Then, okay. Not a dramatic acceptance. Just a small, honest one. It meant everything. Later, as Elena cooked dinner, Daniel stayed behind to help the boys draw dragons on construction paper. Yours has wings. Noah said. Mine breathes ice. Mine writes books, Liam added proudly. Daniel laughed. A very literary dragon. You're good at drawing, Liam said. I haven't drawn in years. You should do it more. Daniel smiled. They were halfway through coloring when Liam turned to him, frowning. Were you scared to meet us? Daniel blinked. Yes. Very. Why? Because I didn't know if I'd be good enough. Noah looked confused. What does that mean? Daniel looked between them. It means I wasn't a good person before. I made a lot of mistakes. And I was afraid you wouldn't like me. Liam looked at him carefully. But, you're nice now. I'm trying to be. Noah leaned his head on Daniel's arm. You don't have to be perfect. Just don't lie. Lying makes moms cry. Daniel went still. Elena looked over from the stove, hearing it too. Her hand froze mid-stir. He swallowed hard. I won't lie. Ever. That night, after the boys were tucked into bed, Daniel helped Elena wash the dishes. The kitchen was dim, the only sound the clinking of plates and the occasional crackle of thunder outside. She handed him a dish towel. You're good with them, she said. He smiled softly. I'm learning from the best. She didn't look at him. They like you. His voice was barely a whisper. Do you? Elena stopped scrubbing the pan. Her shoulders stiffened. I'm still deciding. He nodded. That's fair. You're different now, she added after a long pause. But I don't know if it's change, or guilt. I don't know either, he said honestly. I just know I want to be here. I want to know them. Know you again. And this time, I want to do it right. She turned to him, her face unreadable. Then be ready to hurt. I already am. And still, you're staying? Yes. Thunder cracked outside. She handed him the pan. Then dry this. And don't break it. He took it, a small smile playing on his lips. The next morning, the rain had cleared, leaving behind damp sidewalks and the smell of fresh earth drifting through the city. Elena was preparing the boys for school, packing lunchboxes, tying shoelaces, checking backpacks. Daniel stood in the hallway with his sleeves rolled up, watching the quiet chaos unfold. Noah ran to him with a banana. Open it, please. Daniel peeled it carefully, handing it back like it was gold. Thanks, wizard. Noah grinned and ran off, nearly tripping over his untied shoes. Liam was slower, focused. His backpack was zipped 3 times. Is it okay if I bring my dragon drawing to show Mrs. Kwan? Of course, Daniel said. She'll love it. The morning moved quickly, and before Daniel realized it, he was walking with them to school. Elena walked ahead with Noah, holding his hand. Liam stayed beside Daniel, quietly pointing out cracks in the pavement that looked like animal shapes. That one's a giraffe, he said, hopping over it. Daniel looked down, and for a moment, everything else faded. He remembered nothing of the stock market, or acquisitions, or power. Just this, a crack shaped like a giraffe, and a boy who trusted him enough to point it out. At the school gate, Elena crouched to hug the boys goodbye. Daniel stood back, unsure of his place. But Noah turned, ran to him, and wrapped his arms around Daniel's waist without warning. See you later, wizard. Daniel froze. Then, he bent down and hugged him back. Have a great day, little dragon. Liam gave a small wave before disappearing inside. The gate shut. The street quieted. Elena stood beside him, holding her coat tighter against the breeze. "You look like you belong here," she said, not facing him. "I want to," Daniel replied, his voice low. They walked slowly back toward her apartment, neither speaking for a while. Then Daniel broke the silence. "There's something I've been thinking about." Elena glanced sideways. "That sounds dangerous." "I keep replaying the night I left you," he said, stopping on the sidewalk. "The way I looked at you. The way I said things like they were business transactions." She didn't speak, just watched him. "I told myself I was being honest, efficient. But the truth is, I was a coward. I couldn't face the fact that I didn't know how to love someone who needed me." She let those words sit between them. Finally, she asked, "And now?" "Now I know that love isn't just about showing up with flowers or saying sorry. It's about consistency. About doing the small things that no one applauds you for." She gave a short breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. "That's parenting in one sentence." Daniel looked down. "I want to be part of their routines. Homework. Bedtime stories. Even if I'm bad at it. I want to learn." She nodded slowly. "Then start showing up. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when they're smiling." He stepped closer. "Can I take them this Saturday? Just for a few hours? Somewhere simple. The park, maybe. Ice cream." Elena hesitated. "I won't take them far. I'll keep my phone on. I'll text every step if you want." "You don't need to do all that," she said. "You just need to be present." "So, that's a yes." She looked at him for a long time. Then, "Yes." Daniel exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. That Saturday came quicker than he expected. He showed up at her door early, hair still damp from the shower, holding 2 tiny umbrellas shaped like dinosaurs. The boys shouted when they saw him. "You're early. You said 10. It's 9:42. Elena smirked from the kitchen. "He's learning." Daniel crouched. "You two ready for the best pancakes in the city?" "Yes." "And then, park." Noah screamed. "And the big slide. And then ice cream." Liam added, eyes wide. "Deal," Daniel said. He helped them with their jackets, careful with the zippers, memorizing the way Liam preferred his hood slightly tilted back and how Noah liked his sleeves rolled before he stepped outside. As they walked down the street, hand in hand, Daniel couldn't stop smiling. It was simple. And it was everything. At the park, they ran through the grass, chased pigeons, climbed the giant green dragon-shaped slide. Daniel pushed them on the swings, slower than he should have, too cautious. "Higher!" Noah shouted. "I'm trying." "You're like Grandpa's speed." Daniel laughed. "You're lucky I'm not charging you for this." They ate sticky ice cream that melted too fast, and when Liam dropped his cone, Daniel gave him his without hesitation. Elena called at noon to check in. Daniel answered on the first ring. "We're alive," he said. "Slightly covered in sugar. I can hear the chaos. They're happy." There was a pause. "I can tell," she said. "Your voice sounds different." After he brought them home, both boys fell asleep on the couch mid-cartoon. Daniel stood by the doorway, coat in hand, not wanting to leave. Elena walked beside him, speaking softly. "They'll remember this, you know." "I hope so. They'll remember your voice. Your scent. The way you laughed when Noah spilled juice on your shoes." Daniel looked down at his damp sock. "It was worth it." She hesitated. "I almost forgot how you used to laugh like that." He looked at her. Really looked. "Elena, do you think we could ever?" "No," she said quickly. Then more gently, "Not yet. Maybe not ever. Right now, they come first." He nodded, swallowing the sting. "I understand." But as he turned to leave, she said one more thing. Daniel. He turned back. I don't want to raise them alone forever. Something flickered in her eyes. Hope, maybe. Or fear of it. And Daniel, standing in the doorway, soaked in sunlight and silence, whispered, Then I'll stay, for as long as you'll let me. The days became quieter. Not less full, just softer. Daniel now knew which socks were Liam's and which lunchbox belonged to Noah. He could fold a tiny t-shirt without crumpling it. He learned that Liam hated when his sandwich had crust, and that Noah would only eat carrots if they were shaped like stars. He picked them up from school twice a week. He learned the walk by heart, 3 blocks, a left at the corner with the bakery, past the mural of the tiger in the alley. He started to arrive early, just to watch them through the gates. Noah always running, Liam always thinking. And Elena, she started to let him in more. One evening, she called him over late. The boys were already in bed. Daniel entered the apartment to find her sitting on the floor, surrounded by opened bills and a broken heater remote in her hand. She looked up, eyes tired. I didn't know who else to call. He knelt beside her, quietly. You did the right thing. I hate asking for help, she murmured. I know, he said. But I'm not someone you have to perform for anymore. She didn't answer. Just handed him the remote. They sat in silence while he tried to fix it. After a few minutes, the heater clicked on with a low hum. She exhaled. Thank you, she said. Daniel didn't look up. You know you can rely on me, right? I'm trying to believe that. He looked at her then. What would make you believe it? She stared at the floor. Then, finally, time. He nodded. He could give her that. The boys began asking questions. Not the hard ones. Just small ones. Why did Daniel know how to fix the bike tire? Why did he have pictures of them on his phone? Why did Mommy smile differently when he was around? Daniel answered what he could, and waited for Elena to answer the rest. One Sunday, while helping Liam with a school project about family trees, the boy pointed to the blank space beside his name. What do I put here? He asked, crayon hovering. Daniel gently took the paper and drew a circle. You can write Dad, he said softly. If that feels right to you. Liam stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, carefully, he wrote it down. Later that evening, Daniel lingered in the doorway after the boys had fallen asleep. Elena stood beside him. I didn't tell him to write that, Daniel said. I know. It means something, doesn't it? She nodded. It means he's opening the door. Carefully. He looked at her. And you? She turned to him. But before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She glanced at it. Her expression changed, just for a flicker. Then she silenced it and turned back. Daniel saw it. He didn't say anything then. But the flicker stayed in his mind. The next day, he asked, Is there someone else? Elena looked startled. What? Last night. You got a message. I saw your face change. She sat down, slowly. There's no one I'm with. But there's someone who helped. Before you came back. A friend. He was there when I couldn't breathe. Daniel tried to keep his voice steady. Do you still talk to him? Not often. Do the boys know him? Yes, she admitted. They liked him. He never tried to be their father. But he cared. Daniel looked down at his hands. And you? I don't know. The words landed like stones. I didn't expect you to come back, Daniel. I didn't wait for you. I couldn't. He nodded. Of course. I don't blame you. But now, she said, voice lower, everything feels different. You've changed. They've changed. I have. He looked up, eyes heavy. Am I too late? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood, walked to the window, and stared at the street below. I don't know if I can trust love again, she whispered. Not from you. Not from anyone. Daniel joined her, standing close but not touching. You don't have to trust it. Just don't shut the door completely. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. Why now, Daniel? Why this version of you, and not the one I needed years ago? His voice cracked. Because losing you broke something in me. I didn't know how empty I was until I saw what I could have had. A long pause. Then, almost inaudible, I still love you. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. That's not enough, she said. I know, he replied. But it's real. She didn't send him away. But she didn't say anything else. As he left that night, the weight of everything he still didn't know pressed heavy on his chest. The years she survived without him. The man who helped her breathe. The pain she still carried. And something else. Something he couldn't name yet. But he could feel it. Like a shadow moving slowly toward the light. Something was coming. He just didn't know what. Not yet. He didn't sleep. Daniel lay awake on his living room couch, staring at the ceiling, the city humming faintly outside his windows. The apartment was dark, still perfectly clean, but it no longer felt like home. His real life wasn't here anymore. It was 3 blocks away, where dinosaur umbrellas hung by a door, where crayon drawings filled the fridge, where pancakes burned slightly and still tasted perfect. That was home now. But he didn't belong in it. Not fully. Not yet. He reached for his phone. It was nearly 2 a.m. No messages. He opened his gallery, the last photo he had taken, Noah asleep on his shoulder, mouth slightly open, fingers curled into his coat collar. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered into the quiet, "Don't let me ruin this." The next morning, he showed up at the apartment with 2 coffees and a small bouquet. Not roses, not lilies. Just simple daisies, tied with twine. Elena opened the door still in her robe, brows raised. "You're early. I wanted to see them before school. They're still brushing their teeth. Can I wait?" She stepped aside without answering, but didn't close the door behind him. That, somehow, felt like a victory. Noah burst from the bathroom with foam on his chin. "Daniel!" Liam made the sink overflow. "I did not," came Liam's voice from inside. Daniel smiled. "Sounds like a crisis." He crouched down, wiping Noah's mouth gently. "You ready for the spelling test today?" Noah nodded. "I studied with Mommy. And also with the duck." "The duck." "The rubber one in the bathtub. He's really smart." Daniel laughed. "I believe it." As the boys got dressed, Daniel set the coffee on the table and held the flowers out to Elena. "They're not much," he said. "But they reminded me of you." She took them slowly, her eyes softening. "Because they're simple. Because they're strong. And they make a place feel like spring, even when it's not." She didn't reply. But she didn't set them down either. As the boys left for school with their backpacks bouncing, Elena lingered at the door. "You're trying hard," she said quietly. "I am." She looked at him for a long moment, then, finally, "I notice." It should have been a relief. But something in her eyes still held distance. And that night, it returned. The flicker. The silence. The thing she wasn't saying. Daniel called his assistant the next morning. "I need you to look into something for me," he said, pacing. "I need to know who helped Elena after the divorce. Who paid her hospital bills. Who supported her when she disappeared." There was a pause on the other end. "Sir, are you sure? I need to know if someone was there when I should have been." A few hours later, a name came back. Lucas Co. Daniel stared at it. A former colleague. A quiet one. Friendly. Forgettable, or so he had thought. They had worked together on a logistics project years ago. Daniel barely remembered him. But apparently, Lucas remembered Elena. He found her number easily. He even found photos. One, in particular, stopped Daniel cold. Elena and the boys, at a small zoo. The twins were younger, no more than 2. Liam on Lucas's shoulders. Noah holding his hand. And Elena, smiling. Daniel sat down slowly, the weight crushing. He called Elena that night. Her voice was quiet. "Is everything okay?" "I need to ask you something," he said. "And I need you to be honest with me." A pause. "All right." Lucas CO. Silence. "I saw the photo," he said. "The one from the zoo." Elena didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, "I thought I'd never have to explain that to you. Were you with him?" "No." "Did you love him?" She exhaled. "I don't know." "That's not a no." "No, it's not," she said softly.